Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Greasus Goldtooth in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, and what makes his campaign so really good to actually play. So you do start a war with 3 different enemies, 2 ogre factions and a dwarf faction to the north, and that's kind of one of the first traps that you can fall into in this campaign. You actually have to fight those guys. In reality, you don't have to fight those factions. In fact, quite the contrary, you're best off if you don't end up fighting those factions, because they might be willing to surrender in a couple of turns in your campaign, especially if you minimize losses in battle. So if you want a small tip over here, don't actually fight these battles auto-resolve, fight them manually, because you can get a better result from it. Something else worth pointing out, though, about Greasus' campaign is you don't start with a camp, but you can get one very quickly. Not by building it, but because there is one over here, and this is this faction leader of the cross clubs in the Maw Gate starts with no troops. So either in 2 turns or even 1 turn, you can actually take over the Maw Gate. So you just defeat the initial army, and then you start marching toward the Maw Gate. You ignore Grimtop, even though it is a campaign objective. You just ignore Grimtop. And because Greasus does have these Tyrant demands, one of them giving you replenishment of movement range on an army, then it means that you can just instantly be able to get Greasus over there. I would not recommend doing so. A couple of reasons, but one of the main ones I would not recommend doing so is, well, there's pros and cons, but it's because you will be spending a lot of your early game money if you do so. Instead, you might just be best off to declare war on a couple of different minor factions and then go to the south. Like over here, I declare war on the Dissenter Lords, and I declare war on the Lazarks, who are at war with Arbol. That can give you a significant boost very quickly in your campaign. And you can give Greasus meat, you can get the second army to have even more meat, and all of that is going to be very useful on turn 2. So let's see that turn 2, how it works out. Greasus also has, beyond the fact that he can eliminate his enemies pretty quickly. Like, even if you decide to fight the Sons of the Mountain and the Sons of the Mountain and the Dwarves very quickly, you can certainly destroy them. But it's just best to leave them be, because you kind of don't want to rush towards Gremlor. Like that, there's a couple of campaign traps available over here. Something else worth pointing out is that, usually speaking, in this campaign, one of the contracts that you will get, make sure you do kill this, kill this faction leader in battle. So you come over here, you sack this element, or just occupy it, and then you form confederation with these guys. And you get the camp, you get the bruiser, and we can then transfer the camp over here, and then we can take all of that lovely meat, or a lot of it, not necessarily all of it. Be careful about how much meat you do transfer, because you do obviously not want Greasus to run out of meat. But what we can do here is you can then start getting various structures over here for Greasus. So you can start getting a structure to be able to get the Butcher. You can start getting a structure for the Hunter, so you can get all the Ogre heroes very quickly in this campaign. And you can then recruit another Lord, the Paymaster, because he's generally cheaper. You can then recruit more Lords and transfer even more meat to this camp, in order to get these kind of advantages very quickly, and then start moving Greasus over here to make all of this work. And yeah, just start moving the army right here. Now, the reason all of this is so useful to do is because one of your first contracts may in fact involve Gorst. Now, for whatever reason, apparently skeleton and zombie meat is very valuable. But because of the sheer number of units that Gorst has, and the Skaven also have, you may end up in a situation where well, as you can see, like, we can get the peace agreement very quickly. It might have cost me a bit, but yeah, I have plenty of money to spare in this situation. And you just would kind of want to wait for Gorst to take Shambletown before you do anything else. And that will grant you a fairly significant level of power that you can then use over here. So you get a camp that you're moving to make tier 3 very quickly. You're recruiting a good amount of troops. You're getting every hero from very, very early on in this campaign. Regardless of anything else, that is genuine power in a campaign situation. And on top of that, you also have even more power in a campaign situation, because this province that you start in is one of the primary locations for which cafe and caravans actually travel through. So yeah, as you can see, we can get a peace tree with the dwarves, we can get a peace tree. This is vanilla legendary, I should point out. So in just 3 turns, we've gotten pretty much most of the gold we made back. And now we can go even further. Okay, we can move Greasus right there. Or even reset his movement. And deal with that caravan. And get even more meat in this kind of situation, which obviously will be a pretty powerful benefit for us. It's really not even a question about like, oh, I'd get money. No, I'd get meat. And with this meat, well, what you can then do with this meat is obviously transfer it all over to the camp. Now, it does depend. It's going to be an RNG factor whether or not you will get this kind of level of meat. But important thing here is that it absolutely is viable. It's, again, just randomized possibilities that can happen. Skill-wise, you may wish to get... you may wish to focus on either the red skill line or really the blue skill line. You know, get a bit of growth, get those kind of elements to a higher level quickly in this kind of campaign situation. And then just, you know, wait a bit for various things. Though, yeah, just make sure you're transferring the meat to the camp. One specific thing you can take advantage if you're playing ogres, it's up to you whether or not you want to use it, but one of the things you can do is you can recruit a lord every turn, just take that 50 meat, transfer it over, then disband the army that lord is part of. And that is a great way to get a lot of meat in a camp very quickly. You don't need the income building from the camp. What you just want to do is have that camp get to tier 3 and then tier 4, tier 5 as quickly as possible. That is genuine power in a campaign that you can use. So that's just the kind of early game dynamic, but it gets even better. Because if we look at the contracts that we get, you'll usually get a contract from the Skaven against Gorst. More often than not, you'll get one against Nobly Gorge, and that's a specific contract that you want. But regardless, you will get a contract from Skaven to deal with Gorst because, yeah, obviously they're, you know, feeling the pressure, if you will, from Gorst, and they want someone to deal with him, and that someone is going to be you. In this kind of situation. Yeah, there we go. I suspected that it would work. There we go. But you can go further. You can disband an entire army with Tyrant's demands. You have a huge level of power because you can get a lot of gold in this campaign, and then you can spend that gold for all kinds of enormous benefits. Like, geez, those caravans. Like, this is a fairly regular occurrence on Greasus camping because virtually all cafe caravans do, at one point or another, though I admit it is pretty damn rare to see all of them, so many of them. But you will get a lot of these kind of situations where many different cafe and caravans will be marching through your territory. What you're really waiting for over here, by the way, is like, in this case I'll ignore them, but yeah, if you just wanted to get a lot of freaking meat for this camp, that would be a way to do it. So now we can get a hunter right here soon enough. We'll be able to get more stuff. But yeah, what you're waiting for to happen here, you're waiting for Gorst to go for Shambletown, and then you just want to hit Gorst. You then just want to hit Gorst with your forces right here. Weird. Okay, let's go with that. There we go. And you should be able to easily defeat Gorst with your forces when he does end up showing up. Showing his face right there. And maybe some goblin slingers. Especially because you can also potentially disband his army if that ends up being an issue. And you might even get multiple contracts from the minor Skaven faction that Gorst does start a war with to actually beat him up. So that can give you even more freaking money for you to work with, and more importantly, even more meat. So that gives you a very powerful advantage with your initial camp. And yes, this is exactly what we were waiting for, this exact situation. Because Gorst starts next to Nobley Gorge, which is to the south, and then he's going to make his way to Shambletown and all that kind of stuff. It is ideal if you do get 2 contracts, but yeah. Especially a meat contract against Gorst. But yeah, keep aborting the contracts. The Skaven will pay you eventually. And now you can declare war on him and beat him up. Now you might think, oh, Gorst is really strong. Well, not quite. See, if he recruited zombies, he would be really capable at beating the crap out of you. But the problem for Gorst is he's kind of not recruiting zombies. So because of that specific situation, he's actually quite weak. Like, you can flat out just out-resolve your way to victory, or you can and we can even disband this guy, because it's actually better if we just get him back again later on. But that's just, you know, campaign objectives, campaign dynamics. There's more to this situation that Greasus does have on his hands. So first off, faction effects. He does have Tyrant's demands, diplomatic relations with Ogre factions, income from trade tariffs plus 50%. It takes 10 elven structures to get to 50%. That is a huge, huge, huge economic benefit right there that Greasus does have from the very beginning of his campaign. You can get all the Ogre heroes fairly quickly, because while Maneater and Scrag will eventually eclipse him in terms of meat, the reality of Greasus' starting situation, and specifically the fact that he almost always gets a bounty against Gorst, or all the time gets a bounty against Gorst from the Skaven, means that he actually has a very good meat situation in his campaign early on. So while he might be eclipsed later on in terms of meat potential by the others, he certainly won't be early on. And there's all kinds of different benefits you can obviously use in this situation. Then we look at these Tyrant demands. We can steal a magic item, we can disable an army's movement, cause attrition, we can give our units more ranks, we can replenish movement range, we can establish a building in a target settlement to siphon its income, we can give ourselves more meat, we can purchase a settlement, and we can disband all non-character units within a target army. If you want to defeat Grimgor, that's kind of the key of that situation. You're probably best off, by the way, going for Luther in this dynamic. Might just work out better over there. But as you can see, like right here, this camp already has 400. We can get more. And if I actually wait 2 turns right here and start getting those lords that I already got in the first place, then we can then start recruiting those lords for free, so I don't even have to, pay the money to recruit them, and just keep transferring them. It is a nice little trick available in an ogre campaign that you absolutely can and maybe want to take advantage of it. It is worth saying how much money Greasus can actually get from trade agreements because of his starting province. So his starting province might just be one of the best starting provinces in the game. The reason I say that is you've got tusks, you've got gold, you've got spices over here, and you also have 2 landmarks. So if we look at these settlements, we get Goldtooth Toll Gate, which plus 25% income from trade tariffs and 600 income. That is really, really good. And then we look at the Maw Gate, global recruitment duration -1 turn, global recruitment capacity, diplomatic relations 150 income. So the amount of money that Greasus can generate through this province is very significant. In fact, he's the richest of all the ogres, and in fact, he might have one of the richest factions. He's supposed to be more of a settled ogre. To be sure, he does have more benefits towards that particular playstyle than either Maneater or Scrag in his campaign. Furthermore, but it's obviously not just about like, oh, we're just going to have a camp and then, focus on settling things. Going for camp bundle is not necessarily worth it early on. But there's more. Because if we look at his skill line, he gets 1 population surplus for newly captured settlements, more diplomatic relations with ogres, construction costs for all buildings in a province, income from trade tariffs, trade resources produce gold cascade as a skill, camp limit, meat construction costs, local recruitment duration for units 1 turn, so you can recruit ogre units faster, which is a pretty powerful benefit. And here's the crazy part. Hero recruitment for all heroes in his local province, and hero capacity for all heroes in his local province as well. That is pretty crazy. It's not Astrogoth level of power that he has, but undeniably is freaking powerful. What he does have available over here in this specific campaign just ends up being pretty damn ridiculous when you add all of these benefits together in a specific campaign situation. And because of his location, and a campaign can be very easily determined by location, and more location. But because of his location in a campaign, he can also take advantage of various things diplomatically to get ahead compared to many other factions. Like over here, his initial army is more than capable at defeating a lot of the factions that are arrayed against him early on. Like, you can beat Kugaf, you can beat Gorst. Now you can just auto-resolve against Gorst. Might be a bit more complicated with Kugaf, but you do certainly have the army for it. And then you're free to do whatever you want. Do you want to fight Grimgor? You can do so. Do you want to ally Grimgor? You can do so. You want to go in Cafe? You can do so. There are all kinds of sweet benefits to take advantage of in this campaign. Though, yeah, I would personally recommend fighting the battles manually. Don't just auto-resolve them. It's just gonna work out better if you do so. Though, those must be some really meaty skeletons that he does have on offer. But what I just want to show here is like, okay, so this lord, obviously I transferred the meat, but when I recruit him now for free, he actually gets 15 meat, because whenever you recruit an ogre lord, he does get that extra kind of meat benefit, and then you can also recruit a lord a turn from a camp, so this ends up giving you that kind of early game benefit with the camp. So we can see that we may not have enough meat for a tier 4 camp yet, unless I transfer it from Greasus, who may be able to provide that kind of meat, or would be able to, assuming, you know, I would go and fight Gorst over there. So tier 4 and then tier 5. That's all I had to say. Questine signing out.